So my name is 𝗵𝗵𝗰𝗵, and I am the Mentorship Lead at Women in Mining South Africa. And it's a great pleasure to be here tonight. And I just want to thank everyone for making the time to be here to join us. I think the theme for tonight, it's a very topical phenomena that everyone at every level of their professional or their career, that we all somehow experience this. And I think we've got great, amazing panelists joining us tonight. And I think maybe before we begin, I just want to ask, maybe by a show of hands, or you can just drop it in the chat as well, how many of you have ever felt like, I don't quite deserve to be in spaces I find myself, or I don't really deserve this position, even though when that you're competent for the job, you were trained and you've got the skill, but somehow you feel like it seems like it's not enough, or I just don't fit in. Maybe you can just raise your hands or drop it in the chat to say, hey, I've been there. I've been there. Because it's almost all of us having experienced this thing. So I think tonight will really be an eye-opener for most of us. We've got a psychologist in the house, and we've got somebody who's working with talent, organizational talent, so they're able to somehow pick that up as they interact with the other professionals or their colleagues. So I think we've got great panelists here. So I think with the hands and the chat that we're seeing right now, it shows that's why it's important that we have this conversation today. So you will appreciate that imposter syndrome, it's more common, far more common than we think. And tonight we are really privileged to be joined by 𝘊𝑐𝑖 and also Nicole. So I'll just hand over to 𝘊𝑐𝑖 to introduce herself, and then Nicole will follow after that. 𝘊𝑐𝑖.
So my name is 𝗊𝑐𝑖. A lot of people call me 𝗊𝗶𝗰𝗵𝗫𝗫𝗫, and I'm a psychologist by profession. I work at one of the universities in South Africa, and I'm quite passionate about mental health. So spaces like this are very welcome because they're empowering not only to the next person, it forces one to really think. I remember just sitting and saying, this is interesting. Let me take it back in. Let me think about myself for a second. We never stop learning. So I do appreciate a space like this where we're able to have this kind of discussions. And yeah, I'm also a mom. I'm a mom to an almost 2-year-old. She is a rainbow baby. The story is quite lengthy, but I pride myself in that. That is just God. If ever someone asked me if I know a God exists, I said with that beautiful baby girl of mine. So it's really pushed me towards a lot of work around healing and reclaiming. So it's something that I gravitate towards because I think I too am in my own healing journey. And I'm reclaiming parts of myself. When you go through trauma, a lot of parts get stolen. But I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to see how this conversation goes. Oh, I forget to mention one important thing. I am a Mrs. South Africa semi-finalist for 2026. So sometimes I need to clock that in. Sometimes I love to be humble, but sometimes I must just mention it, even if it's just once in a day, But thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. I am Nicole Naicker. I'm responsible for talent acquisition as part of the 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗃 company. I'm extremely passionate about people and elevating others so that our journey becomes a bit more influential. If we don't help others elevate, then we really don't have a legacy that we can leave behind. Just like 𝗊𝑐𝑖, I'm a mom as well. And I feel that the road or the path that we pave for ourselves and others is a legacy that we leave behind for our children. And the generation that's coming behind us is so open-minded more than we are. And if we don't clear that path for them as we move into the future, whether it's little girls or boys, they're going to struggle to get over the things that we're struggling with at our age currently. So I'm extremely excited to be a part of the session today. It resonates with me, being a young leader as well from a young age. When I saw the topic come up and just the talking points today, said it was really up my alley. So I'm really happy to share the insightfulness wherever I can for today. And please use the platform to also reach out to me if there's any specifics that you would like to know leading on from the conversation today. I'm open to that as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ladies. It's great to have you here tonight. So maybe to just break the ice, maybe Nicole, maybe take us back to a moment where maybe in your own career where you felt the imposter syndrome setting in, and what is the one thing that you now would whisper to your younger self?
So for me, it's been the last couple of years, Dumanalo, it's been really hectic being in the role that I'm in, and people believing in you makes you think whether you can really believe in yourself. And you really look back and say to yourself, gosh, do I really deserve this? Can I really do this? And I realized to myself, reflecting back, to say, you don't need to know everything to deserve a seat at the table. You don't. Growth happens because you're willing to learn, to adapt, to show up consistently. That's what you're really good at, and that's what you should show, first of all. Confidence is built through action, not before it. Something that we've learned through a Women in Mining program that we did through the company, which really, really stuck with me. It says that if you choose courage over comfort, and you push yourself over the ledge, it invites you to discover a different way of flying. And if you just do that, you're able to see and navigate yourself through different difficulties. But if you just sit back and wonder and hope what would happen, you'd never know a different way of flying. There's only one motion and motive. So I felt, for me, that resonated with me and stuck with me to just always push myself over the edge.
I love that. I love that you have to choose courage over comfort. And I think it's so difficult to really move away from what's familiar, what you're used to, because it's safe, you know it, you can do it. So when you have to now move from the unfamiliar, it's a whole new world. So maybe 𝗧𝗧𝗧, to just bring you into the conversation, did you ever had to would you tell your younger self to be courageous? Has imposter syndrome shown up somewhere in your life, and what is it that you could tell your younger self?
Definitely. I've had to tell myself to be courageous so many times. I'm a person who likes growth, right? So that comes with being uncomfortable. And a lot of times when you enter uncomfortable spaces, you can't help but question yourself. You know the dream, but you just can't help. But interesting enough, I come from a career that is quite the opposite of mining. Psychology is quite, it's very women dominated. So while if I think mining, I think more traditionally male dominated. But what showed up for me is that imposter syndrome can show up in any high pressure space. It doesn't matter which space you are at, it can show up where you feel like you have to prove yourself to a certain point to show that you belong in a space. When I thought about this, it just takes me back to a moment in my life where I had just gotten accepted for my master's in psychology. This is something that I wanted for the longest time. And let me tell you, the selection process is extremely, extremely competitive. So in my year, only 7 of us were selected out of thousands of applicants. So that should have been easily a moment of celebration for me. But I just remember thinking, there must be a mistake. How am I here? Are they really sure? I just sat in a corner the first day, just quietly getting in my head, questioning myself. I remember wondering, what if they catch up with me and they notice that maybe I was too prepared for the interviews. I'm not that person that they thought I'd be, you know. So yeah, just feeling like I was not actually good enough for that space at that particular time. So looking back, I can really now name that moment in my life imposter syndrome, because I felt somewhat it was not that I was incompetent, but yeah, I felt like I was not good enough for that space, like I didn't earn that seat despite my hard work. Because when I say highly competitive, I didn't just end up there. It was years of working towards that moment. So if I could whisper something to my younger self, I would say that you don't need to earn your seat every single time, every single day. Being selected meant that someone already saw the potential in me. There was a reason why I was there, because I love what I do right now. If I knew that I'd be sitting here, I don't think I would have sat with all those questions. I would whisper to myself that, look, you're here to learn. You don't have to have figured it out. You are here to grow. You're not even pretending. You are here. Just embrace this moment. So yeah, I'd also just remind that younger version of myself that uncertainty does not mean that I do not belong in spaces. I will need to continuously remind myself this, because a lot of times when I go into new spaces, these little questions, they can't help but come into play. So yeah, it just simply means that entering a space is you wanting to grow, rather.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Right now, I'd like us to maybe take it to your field of work, clinically. How do they define imposter syndrome? What are some of the symptoms or signs that in your line of work you're able to say, okay, you're actually experiencing imposter syndrome when you do interact with your clients? What are some of those signs or symptoms?
And I like that you say clinically, because sometimes you have those moments where we kind of feel like an imposter. But when we talk about psychologically, like clinically, imposter syndrome would refer more to those persistent beliefs that your success, your competence, your achievements are undeserved. It's not like that one moment, even though sometimes we use it loosely, you know. It's like when we think depression, I could be having a bad day and I'm like, oh, I'm depressed, kind of. So even when there is evidence that you are capable, you can't help but feel like you are fooling people around you, feeling like you don't belong in a space, and that one day people will find out that you're actually not good enough. So there is a difference between the normal new job jitters that one would get and imposter syndrome. It's more the intensity of the feeling, that feeling that stays longer than it's needed. So normal jitters sound like, oh, this is new, I'm still learning. So imposter syndrome is quite the opposite of that. It would sound more like, I don't belong here. They made a mistake in choosing me. See, remember that moment that I was sharing, like, oh, what's going on? Are they going to catch me? It's like you're thinking that soon people will realize that you're not good enough. Some, I guess, internal warning signs are that consistently just doubting yourself, despite evidence that you're actually doing well. Someone can give you praise and say, oh, well done, you did so well. And you'd be like, oh, no, I just got lucky. You know, you overwork yourself because you feel like you must prove yourself again and again, fearing to just do any mistakes, comparing yourself harshly with others. It's almost like despite what you do, you feel like you're not good enough, feeling like you always have to earn a place, a space. So I like this man, Carl Rogers, right? He speaks about these conditions of worth when we're growing up. So how we grow up, it's quite long, but I'll just summarize a bit. Roger speaks of how people kind of want to be valued as we grow up. We want to feel like we have a sense of belonging. And sometimes that comes with these conditions of worth that are put on us. Like, if I do this, you get a well done, you're so good. So it then at times forces one to kind of perform in order to feel valued in spaces. In order to succeed, in order to achieve, we must kind of meet certain expectations. So the issue is not only about competence, it's about worth, it's about belonging. So if we had to take it back to histories of how we grow up, sometimes we find that if one is really, really struggling with a clinical diagnosis of imposter syndrome, we take it back to how they were growing up. I'm not saying that we can't have moments of anything. It's life. We have moments, new spaces trigger certain moments. And because also it's nice when you get a well done, a hug after you do something. It's almost like to be good, we must perform a certain way to be accepted. Like in this space of mining where women may already feel pressured to continuously prove themselves, those conditions of worth can become even heavier to a certain level, I'd assume. A person may start feeling like I'm only worthy in the space if I'm strong-headed, for example, if I'm always excellent and never seen struggling. And the reality is that we all struggle. We all figure things out. We can't be excellent all the time, but that doesn't speak to your excellency. So yeah, I think clinically would look at that persistence ongoing and as compared to moments of feeling something.
Thank you for that. So clinically, you're saying it's a consistent feeling.
Yes.
It's a consistent phenomenon that it keeps showing up. Maybe perhaps because of the way we're socialized or groomed and just our background as well, maybe. Nicole, are you from a talent acquisition point of view, a talent perspective point of view? When does imposter syndrome show up when you interviewing a candidate? Obviously, I know this question is maybe unnecessary, but very necessary. Do you notice candidates or new hires displaying signs of imposter syndrome during the interview processes?
Yes, most definitely. It's actually more common than people realize. Depends on the panel, depends how the panel shows up. If they are also reflecting on their accolades, that already puts pressure on the interviewee. Of course, that will come up and show up in that manner as well. It's like the battle of the best. So you as a professional in your space will need to know how to balance that, because we're at the end of the day here to showcase the skills and abilities of the individual that you're interviewing and not necessarily the line leaders that are interviewing them. I think furthermore to that as well, where we do see it showing up is more in the onboarding process. So where I find that when someone's already in the system, it becomes a little bit more evident. So when they get more start into the business, they go through the process with us, you'll see that they get inducted on processes and policies, they feel a bit overwhelmed, they start over-apologizing, downplaying their achievements to see if, the high-performing individual that was already put on the platform in the process, you get obviously matched against. So the hesitation to speak up, these things you can already see as you touch base with the employees that come on board. Some employees believe that they don't meet that requirements 100% before they apply. So they feel that you're given a chance by just being interviewed, and it was by luck that they got the job. similar to what 𝘊𝑚 was saying just now. It's really just highly resonates with us. And only when you're part of the process, some people feel it's just like a tick box exercise. And with you actually can see these things showing up. When we're looking at how an individual is onboarded, let's say over a 90-day turnaround time, then most of the time the new hires second guess their decisions. Like, is it the right position that I'm in? Can I really do this? Is mineral processing for me? Is mining for me? Am I the best process engineer? Am I the best HR person to do the job? Am I the best training person to do the job? Does somebody know better than what I know? So they start asking questions to themselves, but avoid asking the questions to others. They compare themselves to more experienced people across the table or within their department. What is important to remember, I believe, is that these behaviors that if we don't identify is already indicators that might in the individual that gives them that insecurities. And that's what we are there for. We are there to just soften the blow, to show up as HR individuals that there's a reason you were chosen for this journey of yours. You're the director of your own movie. Who you decide to play what role in your movie is up to you completely. If you decide that you're going to take a cut every time something happens and replay the scene, you're not going to achieve overcoming the challenge that you faced with. So I really believe that someone that deeply cares about an individual being a success in the organization will also help nurture and motivate as part of that process. I feel that process of you becoming an employee is so important.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And now I'm just thinking with the Gen Z, I think I'm seeing it different. Yeah, they're quite different in the workplace. So how is that showing up maybe in the spaces where you are Gen Zs and millennials and the other generations before that? How do they compare in terms of just showing up without doubting themselves when opportunity arises? How does this show?
I mean, the younger generations, and I'm seeing it cascading right down to my 4-year-old as well, but they're so much more open. They're so much more self-aware. They discussing at a young age, what does mental health mean? You can see that it comes up. They are quite open about burnout. They're quite open about their boundaries. They're quite open about self-doubt. Whereas maybe I would say the Gen Zs and millennials are more likely to openly say, I feel overwhelmed. I feel underqualified. Whereas the older generation will often go through this toughness silently because they're so used to just building up that resilience and soldiering through. Like the old saying is, pull up your big girl panties and do the job. We would have that in the back of our head to just soldier through whatever you have to do, and you'll complain later. Whereas the younger generation, anything you say to them, doesn't matter where in what curve of their life they're in, they're very vocal to say, hey, whoa, mom, that's a bit too much. That's like, you've given me more information than I needed. Whereas if you had a more senior manager across the table, they would feel overwhelmed, but they wouldn't necessarily say that. They would think, I just have to do it because I need to. That's my job.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that. Nsakisi, maybe in your practice, are you seeing any new patterns with Gen Zs and between Gen Zs and millennials? How does the imposter syndrome show up? Is it presenting itself in new ways or, yeah?
No, I definitely I share the same sentiments with Nicole, because for Gen Zs, they are quite more open, and especially around mental health on a day-to-day, speaking about their emotions. However, though, as much as they share a lot of what they feel, at the same time, there's also a lot of pressure, I should say, around performance, pressure around visibility, pressures around success, like you must be successful today, especially in a world of social media, where there's a lot of comparing and a lot of seeing other people doing other things more than other people. So people are just expected to show up. They just expected to look confident and appear as much as they're doing well, like all the time. So that can come with this imposter syndrome, because it looks like I'm not performing. Am I good enough? Feel like you're not deserving spaces. So I don't think that one can really put a blanket statement over Gen Zs, millennials, and older generation. I do think that what is important is that each generation comes with different kind of pressures, and those pressures may shape how that imposter syndrome can present itself. So some can look more confident externally, but internally still be struggling with self-doubt, questioning whether they are capable or even enough. So with millennials, I think many are sitting in between different worlds. There is the pressure to achieve, that pressure to build stability, the pressure to grow professionally, have that sense of balance, and sometimes carry families, personal responsibilities at the same time. So the pressure may be quieter, but it can also be very heavy as well. So looking at that openness with the Gen Zs and this in between when it comes to millennials, and more looking into older generation, I suppose many people have to also navigate spaces where mental health language was not as common as today. The term imposter syndrome may not have been used in that way, but the feeling may still have been there and may still have existed. So many had to be the first of so many things, first person to do this, the first person to start over, first person to enter certain spaces. And if we look historically within South Africa, there are spaces that a person who looks like me wouldn't necessarily be entering in back in the days. So when that freedom to explore these new roles comes, and also the limitations of histories, I suppose the older generations then they had to question themselves in those ways. Am I meant to be here? I mean, you can go into a shared space with someone who looks different to you, but it's not as comfortable. Am I good enough to occupy the space? Can I own the space? All of those questions. So I suppose the pressures may look different across the generations, but we all have this human need, like I said, to belong, to be accepted, and to be worthy to a certain level. So if we bring it back to also, again, your space, I suppose, women in mining. So regardless of whether you're entering as a new professional, whether you're a Gen Z, millennial, or an older generations, as women, we're still navigating, entering into spaces where we may feel that we constantly have to prove ourselves to get that acceptance. We pride ourselves in resilience. Sometimes I don't know if resilience is a good thing. Sometimes I'm like, oh, yes, it is, because we're not just looking at the struggle. I'm saying I have this ability to bounce back despite whatever comes my way, But you have to find the strength in a more dominated space environment. And so it would show up in all the different kinds of ways. Based on where you are at with life and how you've navigated your own histories.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Thank you for that, Nsagisi. I see we have a comment here, actually a question from, forgive me if I'm going to butcher your name, it's 𝗏𝗃, I think something like, 𝗏𝗃𝗵𝗿, yeah. So 𝗏𝗃 says, what advice would you give to young women in mining who are technically capable but struggle to speak confidently in rooms where they are underestimated? Nsakis, you
So
want to go
that's a
for
very
it?
good question. Advice, not my strong point in life. I'm more of a listener. I know people mistake psychologists for good advisors, but I suppose it goes back to unlearning, and relearning. Unlearning the histories that we've internalized for the longest time, thinking we're not good enough, thinking we can't occupy spaces, and relearning parts of ourselves that can show up. So that comes with a lot of internalizing of newness, internalizing affirmations that remind us of who we are. I'm big on affirmations, just to say I can occupy any space, I can do anything I put my mind to, and best believe I can. When I walk into a room, I carry a lot of confidence, not because I was always like this. It's just unlearning, relearning, and also being kinder to ourselves. Sometimes we want to just show up so perfect. It's not about perfection. It's always about the process of learning and thinking. So I'd say it starts with you. Where are you at? Go back to yourself and question yourself a little. Have a sit down with yourself. How am I? I always say, every time I say, how are you to people, they say, I'm fine, right? Then I'm like, how are you really? Then people start talking. And I'm like, but you said you're fine a second ago. So sometimes we're always on the go, where you're navigating being a woman, you're navigating being a mom, a wife, or whatever roles you play in life. And then you still have to navigate this workspace where you have to continuously assert yourself. So always check in with yourself. When you can answer, how am I? It means that you will know the things you need to show up exactly the way you want to show up in that kind of space. Whether it's you having to build confidence, we never stop working on ourselves. Also going to spaces that you learn, just like this space, to build that internal self, so that when you show up as a better version of the self that you showed up as the previous day.
Thank you for that. There's a second question from still Tashan, Nicole. So Tashan is asking, do you think imposter syndrome in women is sometimes reinforced by workplace culture rather than internal insecurity alone?
Yes, sometimes it is, but I would also just always filter back to who you are as a person. So forget the noise around you. Don't let people move your feet. Watch out for the people that are making you move your feet. So if you think about the horses, there's an alpha mare, and if you're an alpha mare, you shouldn't be moving your feet. The people that are moving your feet, you should think about it, you should reflect, and then ensure that you correct those boundaries so that so that you're not moving to keep up with them. They should be moving to keep up with you. So for me, I always think, as professionals, women professionals in the environments that we are in, we always want to come up bolder and stronger and be the loudest voice in the room. And necessarily that's not what we want. Your efforts and your abilities are already out there. There's no need to have the loudest voice in the room, but definitely know your story. Know what you are going to represent. Be factual in what you're going to do as well. So if you know that, the insecurities is only what you see, not what anyone else sees. Let me tell you that much. If you're going to show up feeling insecure, it's going to be seen that way. If you're going to show up, like what Nsaki said, confidently and owning that space that you are strong in and you have that, then you will. In different companies, different things mean different labels mean different things to people. If you say true to yourself, your authentic self, and you know where your core values are, and you live through your core values, irrespective of what has been cultivated, you can break those boundaries out. So you will always have to stand up and step out. So you will choose those situations where you say, I'm going with this flow of whatever the conversation is, but just by the way, that's not how we do things. That's not how I believe something should be done. that's the best. We should look at always common best practice and apply ourselves to that, irrespective of whether it's a toxic culture or an unintentional culture. I feel a lot of the mining industries, it's unintentional, I don't think, but you need to go there intentionally when you're going to do or present something.
I love that you're moving towards that direction, because I had a question on what are some of the things that you look for as a talent or hiring manager. Do you also look for confidence? During an interview, we're all anxious. How do you decipher that this woman is confident? They can take up spaces given an opportunity under stable conditions. So how do you decipher that gray area?
So generally, when I join or conduct an interview, I always say this is not an interview, this is a discussion. And here is an opportunity for you to tell me what you're really good at. It's not for me to interrogate you on what you're good at and what you're going to do and how did you do it. So we make it more conversational and not an interrogation session, because that's not what we're here for. So if you're not inviting in that process, and if you're not smiling, and if you're not being calm, I always say across the panel, because generally the panel is full of our men leaders. They could look a little bit intimidating. I'll always say I'm the prettier one out of all of them. And that's why I will ask you the easier questions. And just those little icebreakers. If you can see that somebody is becoming a bit jittery in the interviews, pause. There's nothing wrong with pausing. Take a minute and breathe. And I also say that. So take a minute. You don't have to consecutively just answer questions, wrapping. You don't need to. No one's looking for that. We're looking for you that you can think before you respond. I always have this in the back of my head: stop, think, act. So stop, think about what it is you want to respond to, and then you respond. Whether it's a good situation or a bad situation, it will always help you center yourself. 𝘠𝘶. There's a word. That's a word. 𝘠𝘶. Calm down. And then you would see the best version of yourself. But you as a leader in your own environment, it comes with that mentoring skill, being able to show up for our colleagues and give them that advice. I'm also a firm believer that after I've interviewed somebody, giving them feedback, direct feedback, intentional feedback, to say, especially our employees, to say, listen, Nicole, this is how you showed up in the interview. I would like to help you with these skills going forward. So that if you do have to do an interview again, let's do a mock interview. Let's see how you show up this time around. Come in with your confidence. Don't let anyone trigger you out of your peace. Don't let them trigger you out of your thoughts. Don't let those triggers, because even in a conversation like this, something that someone says triggers you from your train of thought. Just center yourself back and follow through.
Thank you for that. So when you mention 𝘠𝘶, I always try to, whenever there's maybe I'm supposed to present something in a room full of people, I always do the 𝘠𝘶, like, can do this. They're here to listen to you. Nobody knows this better than you. I think it's a self-affirming moment. I think it's necessary. So 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 see, I would like us to also how can maybe early career professionals, how can they reframe their mistakes or the mistakes that they've done in the past to grow from the mistakes? How can they reframe from that? Maybe from a clinical point of view.
Sorry, I'm still sitting with the calming yourself. I love that so much, because a lot of times you get anxious because something is important, and just knowing that it's a discussion, it does help, right, to just be able to sit through it and have a good, fruitful conversation. I always just acknowledge the feeling and saying, I'm anxious because this is important. I've noticed that every time I acknowledge a feeling, it doesn't hold power over me. I don't know. Do what you may with that information. I know that's not what I was asked. So yeah, but going back to early career professionals, I think it goes back to what I was saying, that history plays a huge role, right? Especially in how we internalize pressure and mistakes. So for some people, mistakes were not treated as learning moments growing up, so they were criticized or punished. So later in life, mistakes can also feel like that. They can feel quite personal. It can feel like proof that you're not good enough in spaces. So this may really sound cliche, but it's something that I was touching on a bit earlier, that I think a gentler approach is important. We need to approach ourselves with more kindness, especially when we start something new, like a new job, you're a new young professional, whether that is through affirmations, as I've mentioned, like just saying nice things towards yourself. When you say nice things to yourself, you open a pathway in your brain that leads into believing the things. It's like when you say, I can do this one step at a time. I can do anything I put my mind to. This is a mountain, so I'm just going to take it one step at a time. I'm not going to try and have the whole cake, eat it, because it will fall everywhere. Just these affirmations to say, I'm smart, I'm worthy, I'm deserving of space, I am here, you know. Also reflections, reflecting on yourself, and also simple reminders that in terms of how we speak to ourselves, sometimes we don't speak to ourselves with kindness, you know. It's like when you want to ask a question, I don't know if this is a stupid question. Sometimes as women, we tend to be very apologetic, even when we don't need to be. We need to be mindful of the words that we say to ourselves, because somehow we start believing those things. If you believe that whatever you feel, whatever you need to share, it's of value, then it's valuable almost to the next person. So when you're starting a new career, you need to remind yourself that I'm starting. When you say you're starting, it means that I'm here not knowing everything. And that's okay, because you're here to learn. A mistake should not automatically become evidence that you do not belong into a space. It becomes information, rather, especially if you look at it from that way. Like, what can I learn from this since I've made a mistake? How do I make it better for next time? What support do I need to make it better? What skill am I still developing? What can I do differently next time? So the shift is moving from pressure and perfectionism to openness to growth, that opportunity to learn. So I think that's how we can try to navigate it. And thinking of the mining space, I mean, making a mistake, it's reminding yourself that it's not a reflection of your competence, especially relative to males, relative to men. It is not proof that women are less capable, because sometimes in the industry, we tend to internalize things that don't necessarily exist, but we then believe it to be our own truth, and then it affects how we go about relating. It's us learning to separate mistakes and not tie it to your entire identity. I always say that your past mistakes are not the totality of who you are. We don't judge you from your mistakes, to be fair. There's a lot of who 𝘚𝘃𝗧 is, despite this one thing that I did. Yes, I can learn from it. I'm not saying dismiss mistakes. I'm not saying don't acknowledge it, but it's not your entire identity. It's not your worth. You're still learning. You're still growing, just like everyone else.
He's still learning. He's still growing. Thank you for that, 𝘚𝘃𝗧. And we have a question from 𝘚𝘃𝗰𝗴𝘆. 𝘚𝘃𝗰𝗴𝘆 is saying that she has noticed whenever she completes something or achieves something, her first emotion is usually relief rather than accomplishment. It feels less like I'm proud of myself and more, oh, okay, I managed to do that. What was I supposed to do? So she says almost as if the achievement was simply expected and not something I'm allowed to fully celebrate. She's asking, do you think that could be connected to imposter syndrome? where success feels more like avoiding failure or being found out than actually recognizing your own capability?
Well, it can be connected to a lot of different things. If you look at it in that way, it could perhaps be connected to that. But sometimes we are in a world where we're chasing. It's like, think about yourself when you are young. I just want to be old. I want to go to school. You get to varsity. Oh, I want to be done and get a job. You get a job. We want to do the next thing, the next thing. It becomes part of how we do things and who we are. That's why intentional pausing is very important. Pause a little so that you bring yourself to the present and you're not always chasing. Not only does it not minimize your achievements, it's tiring. It's so exhausting to take the next thing, to just feel relieved for a second, because the next thing is always there. If you think about it, one deadline after the next, you have to show up in another space in a certain way, all of that. And also pausing means that you must also think about intentionally celebrating your wins. Sometimes we wait for the bigger picture. Like, we'll celebrate when this happens. Guess what? When that big thing happens, you'll have something else on your plate. Learn to celebrate your small wins. Those small wins are not as small as you think because you were stressing about it just a second ago, just a day ago, just a month ago. Pause and say, look, I did that. If you have to do a little cute ceremony of sorts just to learn to celebrate moments, I think it's important. When we celebrate moments, we also encourage ourselves to do better, to do more, to show up more, because it's nicer than chasing. It's nicer than chasing. So it definitely could be either a part of imposter syndrome, if you look at it in that way. But I also think that the world is so busy that we're not as mindful as we want to be. If you drive down the road and I asked you, did you notice that? You may notice that you didn't because you're thinking about work and the things that you need to do and all of these things. But sometimes we have to be really mindful, sit with ourselves and really just be there and be present. You get that win, you celebrate it.
Sure. I like that you say that. I think somebody once told me, you don't celebrate yourself. Sometimes it's because it's like what 𝘠𝘺𝘰 just alluded to now. You just moving on to the next big thing. You just want to achieve more. I'm not sure if it's perfectionism or what, but they said maybe you should have a bragging sheet. So everything that you've achieved, write them down. Sometimes you just need to remind yourself that I did that, I did that, I did that. So I'm actually capable. I don't have to necessarily feel this way that I'm somehow incompetent or I'm lacking something. No, I've done something almost like this or even better. So maybe we might need to have a bragging sheet to remind ourselves of our achievements. Nicole? Yeah, you want to go for it? Nicole, so I was just thinking, maybe in terms of just when you interact with junior professionals, how are they communicating their boundaries, or how do they ask for help without them feeling like they're exposing their inadequacies or their incompetence?
Yeah, I think sometimes it is a little bit difficult for them, especially if they're challenged with a more senior leader. And we always try to sort of help them flip the script to say, ask the questions differently. If you want to understand or know something, you will say, for instance, when you're asking a question, of course, no question is a stupid question. It's not a sign of weakness. It's actually evolving you as a person. So if you don't ask the question and if you're not curious, you're not going to evolve. If you feel that you haven't been able to frame yourself properly, try asking the question differently. Say, I just wanted to ensure that I delivered this correctly, Mr. or Miss. Could you maybe guide me to the best approach? Or I've tried A and B, but I feel that it might be it would be actually better for me if I hear from your perspective what would look better in a way for me to move forward. So they found that to show that I'm on the right track. But you'd always have to say what it is that you did do. So I tried this and this, and I would like to hear what you would have to say. Am I on the right track? Is this what you would like to see? Ask those questions. Be inquisitive. If you look at the youngsters that are around us, it's the inquisitiveness that makes them learn. So the more inquisitive you are, the more your brain is growing and asking and breaking those boundaries of, I only know this and I can only apply this because 15 or 1,000 years ago, this is how we did things. If we're not going to learn to break those boundaries ourselves, and then you'd be able to reflect back to yourself, say, by asking this question, you're not going to get an answer as that's because if it's a cooking of a meal, that's because your granny said so. If it's work, that's how we used to do it. We've been doing it for the past 10 or 15 years. But when you get the youngsters coming into, but why? I just would like to understand, why do we do what we need to do? So you as a thoughtful leader needs to ensure that you actually tap into that brain of yours as well, to help the youngsters understand why we do what we do. And if you don't yet understand what you're doing and the reason why you're doing it, I guess best to check yourself. Otherwise, you are not moving forward and you're not elevating others as you're going through the journey.
So thank you for that. But also, are you seeing maybe the same trends amongst maybe some of the senior or mid-management professionals, where they somehow maybe pass their anxieties towards or down to their subordinates, maybe due to pressure from above?
Yes, I think they do unknowingly, to be honest with you. They are, because they have the pressure of getting things done and it needs to get done a certain way, they automatically pressure that down. I always say, you bring the weather. So if you as a leader and you're in a meeting, or you are the host of that meeting, if you're going to show up as if you are stressed and the whole world is coming to an end, that is what's going to translate to the rest of the team. So if you show up and you be positive and you are able to navigate whatever the pressures are and be able to actually categorize what it is that is expected, you shouldn't just dump everything onto a team or dump into a person. The junior that you are bringing in is not someone that is going to be a master at all skills. You are employing them for their agility, I would find their actual abilities and personality, their resilience in their sense and also looking for proper attributes rather than their technical mastery, to be honest. Technical know-how can be taught. That's what we are here as experts in our fields. We'll teach you how to do that, but I can't teach you to be a better person. I can't teach you to be kind. I can't teach you to think about someone else before you think about yourself. To do those things that we learned when we were younger, but we probably just put it away. And every time I listen to 𝘊𝑚, my little boy that's 6, he's learning about the emotion wheel. So labeling his feelings. And he is so thoughtful on how he labels the feelings that it makes me think very hard whether I really am being that mom that is recognizing it, or I'm like, just shush, man, what do you mean? Just don't come here with your, I have to think back. I go back and I reflect quite hard as well to say, actually, now he's emotion wheeling me again. But it's so beautiful to see at a young age where we didn't get those opportunities to label the feelings, teach them what the reaction is to that feeling. So it starts from such a young age where we start to cultivate this in either our kids or the youth of today, to ensure them that give them those tools to use when you are feeling something, what it is. You've got a little toolkit. Use those tools when you need them. If you're going to take a hammer out of your toolkit and use it instead of using a spanner, you're going to have a different reaction. So use the right tools for the right emotion, and then you will know how you can actually respond.
So there's a lot of nuggets that you've said right now. I'm trying to jot everything down, and yeah, you're just too fast. It's like, you see, Nicole mentioned that you need to label your feeling. So I think my question to you now is, with imposter syndrome, I would like to know what is normal? When should I be concerned that this is getting out of hand? What is normal clinically?
I suppose when the feelings persist, no matter the space, it's not only even at work, even how you relate with people. You just feel like you're not deserving of people around you, even your work. It's different settings, and that persistency that continues. I think it's something to really think about. If that is you, you go like see someone, talk to someone so that you're able to figure out what is going on. Because sometimes we react in this way because something has happened, but sometimes it's these feelings that have continued. So yeah, I would say that when you're in doubt, just maybe talk to someone and take it from there.
When you're in doubt, talk to someone and take it from there. Thank you so much for that. Do you have any question in the chat? We don't want to leave people behind. Hombrani just has a comment. Okay, all right. Okay, I think there isn't a question at the moment. So maybe let's now talk to, is it on the 28th of May, we'll be commemorating the Day of Action for Women's Health. And I thought, it will be very important, I think, for us to also touch on maybe issues of mental health around women. And I think we should just talk about the physical impact of imposter syndrome, and because we often treat imposter syndrome as just it's mostly a mindset issue sometimes, but 𝗏𝗏𝗰 now has enlightened us to say sometimes it's the socialization, our background, and everything else that she's mentioned. So I want to know, maybe 𝗏𝗏𝗰𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 chronic and daily stress of feeling like a fraud actually manifest in a professional's physical health? Or is there any health effects of imposter syndrome that you have came across?
Definitely, because we are holistic human beings. So what I mean by that is what happens mentally can affect you physically, can affect you emotionally, spiritually, other parts of just who we are. So just like this constant feeling like you need to prove yourself, it can find its way to be a physical thing. You find that you have this heaviness just weighing on you. So in the same way, what happens to you physically can also then affect you mentally, emotionally. So I suppose imposter syndrome is not just a mindset issue in that way. If someone is constantly feeling like they are not good enough, constantly trying to prove themselves, constantly fearing that they will be exposed, that chronic stress can kind of live in the body as well. That's why sometimes I sit with clients that say, I've not been okay. My chest has been so painful. I was referred from campus health. They say there's nothing wrong. I've been having these constant headaches. I was referred here. They say there's nothing wrong. So sometimes we can respond physically because of that continuous stress that we carry, because it's so stressful to have to do all of this, proving yourself, feeling like you belong all the time. And we also have what we call psychosomatic symptoms. That is when your psychological feelings kind of manifest in a more physical. It's not necessarily a physical problem. Like I say, that this constant, the chest, it doesn't mean you're not feeling it, but there's nothing wrong from a medical perspective that is going on. So even over time, that then affects sleep. I mean, if you're thinking of being perfect all the time, now you're either not sleeping because you're thinking so much, you are just one thought leads to the next, then it triggers anxiety. Or sometimes you are sleeping all the time, but you're not even feeling rested. You know, you're tired because it's tiring. You sleep, but then sleep trying to avoid what is going on. Can even affect your concentration because you have to be trying so hard all the time. Even your own emotional regulation, the highs, the lows, and that means that you easily agitated, easily frustrated, your energy levels as well. I mean, your general well-being, really. Someone may feel physically tired, fatigued, anxious, irritable, or even unable to really focus properly. So it's not just a mental thing when we talk imposter syndrome, because it can manifest in all these different ways. Then it also contributes to burnout. And burnout is not you simply being tired. It's deeper, emotional, mental, that physical exhaustion that comes with prolonged stress without enough recovery or enough support, enough boundaries. So when we speak of women's health, this becomes important because many women are balancing so many roles, you know. At one point in life, I feel like I'm a superwoman myself. I'm like doing this and doing that and doing this. So we constantly feeling like you need to prove yourself. And that can be draining over time. That's why those boundaries are important. But boundaries go back to knowing you and what is, you must be self-aware to have boundaries. Even if I said have boundaries, you must have boundaries. If you don't know you enough, it's so difficult to have boundaries. That's why you find people overextending themselves, wanting to perfect things over and over again. And I'm not saying that it's not good to extend yourself when there is a need. Sometimes a company is facing something, you have to show up in other ways. But I'm saying that if you're constantly overextending yourself because of lack of boundaries, where there's no rest, you know, it's important to have that rest as well, to have support systems, self-awareness, so that you can feel psychologically safe, because also, especially within your workspace. So it's definitely part of long-term well-being, and it affects all the different parts of you that you can think about.
Yeah. Thank you, 𝘊𝑐𝑒, for that. And Palisa has a follow-up question on what you've just alluded to now. So what suggested preemptive measures or solutions can you provide for these psychological challenges that manifest physically? Some of the measures or solutions, yeah.
Like I said, holistic, as much as we look at the different things that affect us mentally, emotionally, physically, it must call also for holistic intervention as well. So physically, you must ask yourself, what am I doing to relieve the stress on a physical? I personally take walks. I love that. I've not been doing it now because it's freezing in the mornings, but I exercise like a 5 a.m. girly. Still don't believe it, but I am. I wake up and I notice that the waking up is hard, but as soon as I exercise, you release good hormones, you release, you are ready to start the day. You have a clearer mind. So physically, for me, that works because I'm intentional about waking up before everyone wakes up, before I need to be a wife, before I need to be a mom, before I need to be a psychologist, before I need to show up in any other ways that I show up. So physically, you can think of stuff like physical, dancing, if you can dance. Dancing doesn't mean you have to be very good at it. To move around a bit, physically, are you getting enough sleep? Not the oversleeping that we're talking about, because sometimes when you're sleeping like 5 hours every single day, 4 hours, 3 hours, and you like pride yourself in that, it really has a way of disrupting your day. You can't concentrate the way you'd concentrate. So that is physically. Fluid intake, like your water, it's things that sound simple, but they have their own physical benefits in terms of that. Looking at your diet, some other food will make you more tired than others, will induce more stress. Eating more healthy. I say that because I don't want you to ask me what I ate today, because it may look like I'm not the person who's doing this stuff. But I mean, being intentional about it. I'm not saying you don't have moments of eating something you really want to eat, but your sugar intake, all of that, because then it then affects your stress and not so much. So emotionally, finding a way to also relieve stress from an emotional. I always say, talk to someone, talk to a stranger. You don't have to pay for therapy if you don't want to. Talk to a neighbor, talk to someone you trust, though. I'm not saying you must just talk to people that, because things that we say to people is very private. If you don't want to talk because you are so scared what people will do and what they will think of you, write things down. Find a way to emotionally externalize whatever it is that you're feeling. I don't write a lot in terms of what I feel on the now, but I write what I call a gratitude journal. A gratitude journal grounds me every single time. I take a piece of paper just once a week and write 5 things I'm grateful for. Every time I look at it, I start off thinking, there's really nothing to be grateful for. But the fact that you got out of bed, it's something that we take for granted because it's hard to get out of bed sometimes, but you did that. Things that you're grateful for, whether it's your support system, whether it's you showing up in a way that you didn't think you would have at work. You were a bit nervous, but you were brave enough to have that conversation, to have that talk. So it doesn't have to be a gratitude journal, but externalize whatever it is that you're feeling. Spiritually, whatever spirituality means to you. I pray if you want. Meditation can be a spiritual act as well, where you are really calm and mindful. You like ground yourself, especially when you remind yourself that I'm standing on the ground. I'm not falling. The ground is holding you. I know that sometimes we go through so much that it feels like we're about to fall everywhere. But best believe if you're sitting on that chair right now or you're standing and you're not falling, the ground is holding you. So as long as the ground is holding you, you are held. You will just need a moment to figure things out, to navigate around whatever challenge that you are facing in that time. So spiritually, mentally, emotionally, you just do something physically. And I think holistically, you just feel a bit better if you're doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. But obviously, I highly recommend therapy. I go for therapy every time I have life-changing things, and also therapy where we work a lot of people. There's structures in place. I don't know about your industry, but sometimes you can reach out to these people because it's therapy. It's confidential, but if you don't trust that, you find a space that you can trust where you're able to hear yourself think. Because sometimes when we're in our heads, one little thought just spirals into so much more.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. And I think also the mining industry, like you've rightfully said, it's also I think we are going towards a very positive direction in terms of mental health now, because now we do have a legislation that or procedures, a directive that is focused on mental health, where we need to put in plans on how are we going to really manage mental health issues amongst employees. And maybe to bring Nicole into the conversation, Nicole, maybe from a talent perspective, how do we then, looking at women, how do we then shift towards creating healthier working and organizational ecosystems or working environments for women as far as mental health or imposter syndrome is concerned?
So generally, you cannot coach confidence. Confidence is something that you have built within you. It's like if you look at a car and you say that this is actually factory set, this is exactly how you get it. That's one of those things. You can be mentored into voicing yourself up a little bit more, but if you're coming into an unhealthy system, it's sometimes hard for that to be brought forth to the front. So I think as in our organizations, especially in the mining environment, construction environment, manufacturing, we are very performance driven. Everything is performance, targets, milestones. And in order for us to evolve from there, we need to move the mindset or shift the mindset to build more a cultured, rooted environment. So what is your culture as a company? What do you see? What do people see as your culture? Where am I actually building psychological safety in my teams? Do I give them a sense of belonging? Do me, myself, when I have a discussion with my employees, am I giving them the freedom to actually challenge things and know that, you know what, if by asking a question, I'm able to support you. By making mistakes, if you don't make mistakes, I say this to my team as well. If you don't make mistakes, you're not learning. If you don't make a mistake, then I have a problem, because that means we're just doing the same thing that we used to do over and over again. So as long as we can manage whatever has happened and nobody has died, that means you're going to learn. We're not heart surgeons. We are here. If we will be able to. That's my job as your manager, is to help to fix what you tried, what you probably didn't mean to break, but you broke. So as long as I can't fix something, and I can only not fix something if I then have to go and fix a heart or an arm, something that I don't have a profession in. But if I can fix it, and that's why I'm here, there's no mistakes there. And by doing that, you are creating an environment for your team to say, listen, yeah, I can actually test and trial this. And then I can become perfect in the sense of whatever I need to do, I can then do. Because if your team is not learning in that environment, then it is a bit difficult. In an organization, how can I display that I am being fair? Am I creating fair opportunities for everybody? Am I transparent about about what's happening in the business, processes, promotions? How did a person get promoted? Or is it selective? There is a process that we follow. So you have to be inclusive in how you do this. Have a leadership team that shows that they can communicate, they are involved, they know everybody in their team, understand them on different levels, mentorship, ensuring that the mentorship programs are not just lip service. What are you doing? What are you doing to ensure that you are mentoring others in your own space? I feel that we've been talking about this across the table a lot in our business as well, and we actually a couple times have elevated the conversation to say that even if we put the targets and milestones down on a site, where do we really see the curve? Where do we really see the spike in our employees? Over 2,000, 3,000 employees. We feel that on a site where the employees feels that they are safe and they're seen, they're supported, they're celebrated, they thrive. But where they feel that they are threatened, or they feel that, my contract's coming to an end, or we don't know if our contract's going to be extended on a project that you feel that everybody tenses up. Everybody then makes mistakes because of thinking of that. We also try to challenge the narrative. We're saying, let's shift our mind from why do we say we lack confidence as women in the mining industry, and rather look at what barriers exists in the workplace that makes us feel that way. So what is consistently undermined as confident, as this person not being confident? And let's work on that. Let's see how we can actually support and do things differently to ensure that those barriers are not there. Then those narratives that come out from different rooms to say that the person is not confident, we can then easily say no, but actually let's change the perspective here, and rather say, what have I done in this situation to make her feel this way? What haven't I done for her to feel this way? Or what have I done so that she showed up differently? Comparing it to in our thriving environments as well. So we try to put out a catalyst. It's sometimes doable, sometimes it's not. Where it works, let's transfer. Where it's not, let's change and transform. And if we're not doing that, then we're going to stay the same people that we were 30 years ago. We're not going to change our working environment and culture, and ensuring that our people have that sense of belonging and have a culture that they can resonate with. Do I just choose the values to talk about them, or do I actually live them?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that, Nicole. So I think at this point, I would like to maybe have you, this will be directed to Nicole. I think 𝘧𝘂𝐶 brought up the issue of burnout. In your organization, or just generally, how are you seeing that organizations are managing burnout? Just on an organizational level, are we managing burnout, especially maybe coming from women? How are we managing that, Nicole?
So, I'll talk from my own personal view as well as my team. I feel you yourself need to recognize when a burnout is a burnout. If you keep on just running around the wheel like a hamster and keep at it, you're eventually going to fall. So I call it a tap out. So I say to my team, even if I find somebody that is agitated or frustrated, we have very lean teams. So you will have to acknowledge that for yourself and say, you know what, whoa. I think it's time for you to tap out. Whatever we're going to do for today is not going to change tomorrow. So let's tap out for a minute or two, recenter yourself. Always have back to what 𝘧𝘂𝐶 was saying, you must have a work-life balance. And I'm one to talk. I've been in the industry for 18 years. I've always been this hardcore, target-driven. I must do it. I must be at this power station, at that power station. I must be now with have this deliverable with Mentorship, because you know what? That mine is going to stop if I don't get this person there. No, it's not. Working on Fridays until 7 o'clock for the past 2 Fridays in my whole 18-year career, I've always worked late on a Friday. I've got a very young family as well. And I intentionally said to myself, Nicole, you are losing it. You are seriously losing it. You don't have the time to just shut your brain up and on just work-related stuff and just be there for your family. So intentionally last week, Friday, and the Friday before that, I switched my laptop at 3:30. And I said, okay, this is it. I'm not going to be running till 7, 8 o'clock. But by the time I get to that, I'm extremely tired. I don't want to listen to anybody and their stories. I just want to be by myself because I've already had so much of noise from the whole week. I swear to you, Ndumalalo and 𝘧𝘂𝐶, I'm a different person. At just doing that small change in my life of just creating that boundary for myself to say, at this time, and we don't ever finish it really at 3:30, but just even that clock in my own head to say, no one's going to die tomorrow. Let's prioritize what we are doing. We finish off at 3:30. Husa, have a good weekend. Come back on a Monday. I'm a much better person. I'm not the raging dragon that I was. My little daughter says to me, oh, gosh, the dragon's coming. And for the past 2 Fridays, she actually enjoyed mom being around. You're not you're not spitting fire. She says spitting fire. You're not spitting fire, but you're actually a bit more consoling. You're a bit more understanding. You're able to listen to everybody's trials and tribulations that they go through. So I go back to what I originally said, that as a parent, as a leader, you bring the weather. So if you walk into the room and you're all screaming and shouting, guess what? You're going to get screaming and shouting back. So you would have to decide for yourself that those things yourself, you need to label it and you need to manage it in your control wherever you can, so that others can pick up on what you are doing and actually shows them that it will have a better output, instead of running someone to the wall and mistakes would happen. You are able to see if you can't already pick this up in your teams, then either you burnt out and you don't know how to manage it yourself, and you need to reflect back. I always reflect back. How did I do this? How do I show up? How could I have done this a little bit better than what I did now, especially when there's a different outcome? And try not, 𝘧𝘂𝐶, to be hard on myself on saying that you can't get it right 100% all the time. but how you improve what you do helps you transform to become a better version of yourself. And I think that is what I could really resonate with you as well, and make me think, okay, I'm doing something right. There's something that I can do right, and there's something that I've really acknowledged in myself that I have done, and I hope I'm going to stick to it because it's made a difference to me.
Thank you for that, Nicole. So maybe in closing, getting towards the end, what would be your parting shot?
For me, I would say always stay authentic to yourself. Ground yourself with the values that you might have not necessarily grown up with, but from my background, I had to learn my own and cultivate my own values because there's certain things that I didn't like. As you go on in your life as well, choose the things that you want to reflect in you. So if there was something that you didn't like about yourself, let go of it. And I like something that I've seen, for instance, in 𝘂𝘃. I will steal that from her to put it in my toolbox so that I can use it. Take these sessions, use all these nuggets, light bulb moments that you've got, put it in your kitty and use it again. Tap in, because if you're going to join these sessions and you're going to go and be a motivational speaker and you yourself are not tapping into those things that you have, you've got the toolkit. Choose the things that you want to use. Otherwise, it becomes useless. You can't have a toolbox full of tools that's supposed to help you navigate through life, navigate through your feelings, help you elevate yourself, move to the next level if you don't use those tools to build the path that you want to follow at the end of the day.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Nicole. 𝘂𝘃, what will be your parting shot?
You need to give from a cup that is full. A lot of times we try, because we are taught generosity, right? And it's good to be generous, but we give even when there's nothing to give. It's like if I have no money in my pocket and you ask for money, but I must try to give you money. How am I giving you money if I don't have money? So we need to find ways to fill our cup. Filling your cup means that overflow is even coming from a space where there is more to sustain you. So self-care is not luxury. Self-care is important. I say this because we think self-care, no, it's for these people, it's luxury. Self-care is not luxury. You need to take care of yourself. Whatever makes sense to you when we talk taking care of ourselves, it's just you being intentional about taking care of yourself. And I love that, what you said, Nicole, that if no one is dying, we'll resume. I mean, we should remember that, because even you as someone who's employed, if something happens to you, yes, we'll send sad messages and all, but a new hiring is supposed to be done because we need someone to do the job. I'm not saying this it's just a gentle reminder to yourself. You can only give so much in a space, but you give from a fuller cup. So you excel even in what you do because you are giving back to yourself. So take care of yourself, take time off, pause when you need to pause. And yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for that, ladies. Self-care is not a luxury. It is not a luxury, and we need to instill boundaries and really stick by those boundaries. Thank you so much for tonight. This has been an insightful session. I'm not sure if 𝘠𝗀𝘰 wants to say something, but from my side, thank you and everybody who attended tonight. We really, really appreciate your time. 𝘠𝗀𝘰?
For me, is to say thank you to our panelists and everybody online, and the engagement has truly been insightful and empowering. And I hope that everybody feels lighter, understanding that we all, I think, have similar struggles, but today we have been, equipped with tools, and we know who to also talk to if it gets overwhelming. So Ndamo, to you and the WIMSA committee team, thank you so much for putting this together. And again, to our panelists, a great thank you for your encouragement and words of empowerment. Thank you all.
Thank you. We'll see you on the next one. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.